Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. Here, we look closely at the intersections of the postpartum window, the Ayurvedic perspective on health and healing, and the universal mother principles that are the keys to giving and receiving effective care. Hello, I'm Christine Eck. I'll be taking you through interviews with professionals who are making a profound difference in the lives of their clients, conversations with individuals brave enough to share their stories of vulnerability as a way to lift up others, and my own journey through birth, parenting, caregiving, and building a conscious business. We are here to honor the sacred windows, the profound transitions in life that give it all meaning. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sacred Window podcast. I am so excited about this episode, which came about so organically, just with, it was one of those inspirational flowing moments with my friend Jessica here. I'm really happy, Jessica, to have you on the podcast to talk about this. Today, we're diving into knitting and how this is a therapeutic act. So why do moms knit? The hidden benefit of fiber arts as a tool for balanced parenting, but also just healing and balancing the inner plane. We nerded out on how deeply this goes and how many connections there are from the Ayurvedic perspective, and we cannot wait to dive in. Jessica is an Ayurvedic health counselor. She's a yoga teacher. She is a fiber artist. She's a mom to two girls. She's also part of our training program in the Center for Sacred Window Studies, studying to become a conscious postpartum care provider. She lives in the Hudson Valley in New York. Jessica, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and to talk about knitting and fiber arts and how it all connects.
Yeah, so we, just in a call together, I don't even remember like how we were guided into this exploration of the therapeutic benefits of knitting. But, talk a little bit about how you entered into this art form and what it has done for you.
Yeah, so I have been working with fiber arts for a while. When I was younger, both of my grandmothers taught me different things. So my grandmother on my father's side, she taught me how to knit when I was 6 or 7, I think. I still remember sitting on her couch and her showing me how to do it. But I only made one or two things, and then I moved on from that. And then my grandmother on my mother's side, when she passed away, I received her sewing kit, um, and I was so honored to receive that. And I had all her old pencils she used to use to make notes. I had her thread and her needles. And so it really started with sewing. And I did a couple of small projects, and I was doing some crocheting. And then I think it was a New Year's resolution, I think 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, I think 3 years ago, I really wanted to try knitting because I love the way that the knit garments look. And yeah, I just loved how the fabric looked, and it was a challenge. And so I challenged myself to start, and I knit myself my first scarf, and I kind of taught myself. I think I took one lesson, and then from there, I just researched on my own, and I started making things. And ever since, it's been one of my favorite things to do. It's become a part of me, really.
Yeah, and we really bonded over this because I also have been so incredibly drawn to fiber arts my whole adult life. I started with crocheting, which my mother-in-law taught me how to do years ago, and learned how to knit. We have an incredible, like, store in my town that I had been ordering from before I even lived here. And when I moved here and I realized that this epic, center for fiber art materials was here, I just couldn't even believe my luck. And so I learned from them like weaving and more advanced knitting techniques. And I will say that over the past decade, with my children and raising them, it has totally fallen to the wayside. And I have had to just, or I guess I've felt like I didn't have time or capacity or whatever. And one thing that really drew me to creating this conversation with you was how there's so much more to this practice than a hobby. And I think we could go into
Hmm.
like, the Ayurvedic benefits of like having hobbies and how that stimulates the heart and the mind and
Hmm.
opens, our chakras, our energetic centers. There's a lot there. However, there's something particular about the practice of like, let's say knitting, for example, that creates a flow and a balance for people that is, I think, why people become so drawn and committed to it. And so when you have experienced, like, so you really dove into this art form in the past 3 years, how does it feel for you when you are knitting?
Yeah. Knitting is so beneficial in terms of how it brings mindfulness into your life. And I also think, especially with knitting, how it uses both sides of your hands. I think that helps to balance both sides of the brain. So the creative side and then the decision-making side. I think it all, for some reason, I think that that really helps. It also helps to give my mind something to anchor on. And so I am neurodivergent. I actually have ADHD, and it's been so beneficial for holding my attention and quieting my mind. Um, it brought such solace to me when I was, because when I started, I was in the throes of postpartum with my second child, and I did suffer from postpartum depression with her. And um, I think that fiber arts and keeping projects like this really helped to pull me out and to keep me afloat because it gave me something to look forward to. It gave me a sense of accomplishment, something tangible that I could hold and admire that wasn't just my baby, that wasn't just the breastfeeding that I was doing, that wasn't just the diapers and the feeding and all of those things. It gave me my own creative um, inspiration and fire. And I think that that's really important, especially, um, after people become parents, it can be so hard to find time for that creativity, but I think it's actually the most important time to connect with that. And I think it's almost a radical act to protect that sacred time of creating. And um it can seem or feel selfish, but I don't think that it is. I think it gives you something greater, and you can connect to yourself on a greater level that in turn helps you be a better parent. And then you can share that with your children. Like I'm teaching them to knit. I'm teaching them to how they can create things, and that there's, the possibilities are endless when you can make things with your own two hands. And yeah.
Mm, mm. Do you feel like the experience of like sort of, knitting through those first few years as I mean, to be honest, for me, I think going from one to two children is so hard in a lot of ways, like learning
Yeah.
to balance your time, two children there instead of one. It's a really big deal.
Hmm.
And certain things may feel easier, but a lot feels harder. And I'm curious, you talked about experiencing some postpartum depression. How, like, when you were knitting, when you were preserving that time for yourself, did you feel like a lightening of that heavier quality that characterizes postpartum depression?
Yes, I really did. And because that heaviness, that hopelessness, um, that isolation feeling, I somehow having the comfort of the project and uh, uh, picking the colors. I think there's something to be said about being surrounded by beautiful things. And so you have beautiful fibers that feel so soft and comforting in your hands. And there's uh, the things that you can create, it depends on what kind of uh, I guess what kind of emotions you're dealing with, but um, you can even use the colors to help to balance. So using brighter colors when you're feeling a little bit darker, or using more calming colors if you're feeling really agitated um, and hot. Um, yeah, it really was like a friend. And even now I bring my knitting projects everywhere with me, so I'm always knitting. I always have it in my bag. It always gives me something to do rather than just scrolling on my phone and kind of that numbingness. I think it helps to prevent also against that heaviness, that numbness. It keeps your mind moving towards something productive. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's coming up for me too is the rhythm of it. I think so much of
Hmm.
postpartum is characterized by this, Vata, high Vata experience of just ungroundedness, feeling,
Hmm.
like there is no structure to hold us safely and securely. And so there's something about patterns and rhythms and routines that naturally helps to bring down that feeling of unstructured chaos. Um, so we're kind of naturally going into talking about the doshas, and let's like go a little deeper. We realized that knitting is doshic.
Yes.
And like, yeah, so for those of you, maybe new to Ayurveda, like we are looking at the world and all of existence through the lens of the elements. And in Ayurveda, we look at the elements in the human experience through the lens of the doshas, and Vata dosha being air and space, the most light and subtle of doshas. Pitta being fire and water, sort of the active transformational principle, and Kapha being water and earth, sort of the really solid kind of, gross properties of being human. And these qualities, these doshas show up in the way that we think and behave, and of course in our physical body as well. But let's look at like the practice of knitting and fiber arts through the lens of these doshas. And let's start with Vata dosha because we're already like kind of right there. And yeah, so we've got like we're talking about like this, like the actual qualities of the fibers themselves. And,
Hmm.
I think a lot of, in the work that we do with postpartum care, we're really dealing with a lot of high air and space element. And this is dry and very mobile and light and cold and rough. Like these are the qualities of Vata dosha. So when we think about the process of knitting and fiber arts, yeah, like honestly, like when I go into this shop in my town with like all of these different incredible yarns, I just want to like snuggle up inside bins because it is so soft and there's so many different choices. And that in itself soothes my Vata.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. The feeling and the touch of, especially I found wool is because it's like a cotton yarn might make you feel cooler, but it still has that softness, and it's just the opposite of that dry, rough feeling. And when you think of when you're when you're doing knitting or crocheting or even sewing, the fiber is actually moving across your hands and it's creating that kind of smooth texture. And so it's soothing, our touch is such a big vital part of Vata, that our skin and the feeling of touch, and it soothes it in a way that it's like a big blanket. And even when you're working with the fibers and you have the yarn on your lap, it's kind of weighing you down a little bit. When if you're making something bigger, you can even be making a blanket, and as it grows, it's on top of you, and you're wearing it, and it's keeping you warm. It's helping to weigh down that lightness and that restlessness, and it really is so grounding. Um, and I think especially with Vata, there's so much possibility for incredible creativity, but unless that has an anchor and it has somewhere to go, it can just really become so unbalanced. And that subtle period, especially during postpartum, when everything, the element of space and that subtlety, it can be so vast. And so to give that possibility of creativity something to anchor into, and then to actually choose a project, choose the fiber that you're working with, choose your needles. It's grounding and giving stability to that creativity, and you can make beautiful things with that creativity, but it has to have some sort of anchor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is really like where we want to call in like our Pitta and our Kapha to like we need all three, you know? So
Hmm.
that, you describing like putting structure around your creativity, but it's like the doing it and like the moving through those choices and moving through,
Hmm.
the transformation. Like let's look at Pitta dosha now. So we're looking at the idea and the materials transforming into something new. And there's
Yeah.
also like talk about like the process in the mind that's happening throughout the creation of this project. How are you sharing your gifts and passion for caregiving with others? In a world where education and awareness around the postpartum window is lacking or missing from our modern systems, we have a profound opportunity to shift that paradigm. You may be a few simple offerings away from making a truly impactful difference in the lives of mothers and families in your community. We are here to support your journey in the ways that work best for you. Schedule a conscious care strategy session to meet one on one with me, and let's identify the right next step for you to begin a path of conscious care for new families that fits your life and your needs. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session to schedule a time that works best for you. That's www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session.
Yeah. Um, it's really funny because I was thinking about Pitta dosha, and I think one of the best ways it can balance Pitta dosha is that you have to make mistakes and you have to learn because you're going to make mistakes, and you have to be comfortable with making mistakes, which Pitta dosha does not like. It it likes to be efficient, it likes to get things done, but I think it brings such a a lightness in terms of like humor, a sense of humor against that sharp critical side that you can brush up against with Pitta. Um, and yeah, and you can and it brings out the beauty of Pitta with taking a piece of string and transforming it into something totally new, but you can't do that in all in one day, which Pitta might want to do. You have to do it in small steps. So working towards that goal in a small way, but I think it really helps to balance people who, maybe in postpartum and they're used to making their to-do lists and checking things off and getting things done. And maybe that's not possible when you need rest and you need healing and you need, um, you just becoming a parent is so humbling, and you can't get things done in that way. And I think that fiber arts projects and knitting projects, they can still give you that opportunity to execute a project, but it's a softer version of that.
Yeah, it's like that. It's an invitation into patience, which is
Yes.
sort of like, imbalanced pitta. When pitta's too high, we're impatient. We like want it done yesterday. And what this allows us to do is practice going slow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even
And
like the
yeah.
pace at which you stitch, like you can go very deliberately slow and watch how that calms that pitta down.
Yes, exactly. And even the softness here, the softness of the fibers can help combat that sharpness too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Because some of the qualities of pitta are hot and sharp, and it allows like oily. It allows us to, when we see pitta elevated in the mind, we're, like you said, like critical, we're impatient, we're agitated. And so the softness is something that's so key for helping to minimize pitta. And pitta is often really aggravated in the postpartum window too. Vata
Yes.
is always going to be elevated to some degree, but one thing that Vata does is kind of push the other doshas out of
Mm-hmm.
balance. It's that
Mm-hmm.
that wind can kind of blow the others into a place of aggravation. And for people who are, have a high pitta constitution, that can really easily happen in postpartum. So, those feelings of self-criticism, of
Mm-hmm.
patience with self, like why can't I get it together? Or
Mm-hmm.
I can't, I gotta get out of this house, like I just need to move, I need to do, like we feel that rush to do things that may not be the right choice for us, but we have that aggravated feeling within us that's, making us feel impatient with ourselves or with others. So to practice something that helps us remember to go slow is humongous. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, and it comes back to that rhythmic nature. I can feel, especially even that happens to me a lot where my Vata can push my Pitta and I just get angry or irritable, frustrated. But so, like after bedtime, for example, if your bedtime did not go the way that you wanted it to go, and your chest is feeling all hot and you're feeling so frustrated with how the end of your day went, but then you go down and you sit on the couch and you pick up a knitting project and it can kind of just help you calm back down and come back and find your center. And I can feel an instant effect if I have a project where so and that's another thing where there's different kinds of projects that are beneficial at different times. So it's really nice to have a project that is kind of mindless, where you're just there's not that many changes in the pattern. You're just kind of following it along, especially at the end of the day. And if you can just sink into that, I can feel an instant relief of um, of so many different mental and physical qualities that it helps to soothe almost instantly. Yeah.
Mm, mm. I love that. So let's move on to Kapha dosha. I'm curious what your thoughts are around how knitting pacifies excess kapha or imbalanced kapha.
Yeah, so I think there's it's different. It's different with Kapha because I think that a ka it's with Kapha you have to um think about it because if a Kapha's dream day is sitting on the couch and just relaxing, but I think that it can help balance Kapha in a way that you can still rest, but you can be stimulating your mind and working towards a goal finding your purpose. You know, Kapha is so good at, just the uh, that warmth of heart, and I think that finding of purpose while also taking it takes guts to take a risk to start something new. And so I think that's where it can kind of push Kapha to go into balance, because um you have to take a risk. It's something maybe you've never done before, and it's out of your comfort zone. And and I also think it helps to bring a sense of connection, and whether you join a community or you have an online community, or um just to yourself, to your own spirit or your own creativity. It can help to combat how Kapha can be feel that heaviness, that isolation, that loneliness. It brings out the best parts of Kapha, I think.
I love that so much. It's like the idea of like active rest, which
Yes.
honestly for postpartum is so important. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we want to be resting. We may need, like, we probably do need to be resting. And when we experience too much rest, yeah, we can slip into that heaviness, into depression, into things that are too much kapha, which
Yeah.
creates, that sort of immobile, that unmotivated feeling of stuckness.
Yeah.
But this is like rest that is in creation mode. And I love
Yeah.
that idea of like, yeah, you do have to take a risk and start something new. And maybe it's like, challenging yourself with a little bit of a more advanced design or something,
Yeah.
or,
Yes.
trying something. Yeah,
Switching up new projects, maybe instead of doing the same pattern over and over, or just doing a safe scarf that you've done or a safe hat that you can done, like try color work, or you can try a lace pattern that is really scary. But every single risk that I've ever taken, especially when learning knitting, it has given me um, tenfold back. So, like learning how to fix my mistakes, once I learned how to fix my mistakes in knitting, even though that was really scary, it opened up a whole brand new world. Um, and so, yeah, it's so incredible how it's such a well-rounded activity and practice to make in your life.
Well, one thing that I feel really excited about is Jessica's creating in her town sort of a combination of knitting circle and new parent circle. Folks who want to come together, be in community, almost like, the new parent circle where we come to get support and be seen and be heard and be reassured and be in community. But then we can add this layer of bring your project. And
Mm-hmm.
you're such a skilled fiber artist, so you have the ability to kind of help those, people get over the hump of this is really scary and I don't know this skill. So you have the ability to do that, but it's so much about community. And what I think when we add this community aspect and being with other people, that is something that is balancing for all of the doshas in a number of
Mm-hmm.
different ways. And that is something that is essential and is sort of chronically underexperienced for new parents. Like we don't have enough people to come and support us. We feel hesitant maybe to ask for help. That's another thing that I thought about when you were talking about kapha knitting is
Oh
sometimes,
yeah.
the act of like asking for help or teaching when we get stuck, like that is something that pacifies our kapha. Like when we move
Mm-hmm.
out and we seek the support of someone else, we feel lighter. We feel less
Yeah.
isolated and stuck. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about the intention behind the knitting circle and how that is going to create um, opportunities for people to both experience this beautiful art form, but also to just balance the needs that we have as new parents.
Yeah. And so I'm this past week or last week, I visited somewhere that I might be doing it, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly the mission statement in terms of knitting postpartum. I think my goal is to really create somewhere where it can be any handcraft, or you can just come and watch other people handcraft. And if you're postpartum, whether it's freshly postpartum to all the way, postpartum is forever. And so you can come. I want people to be able to bring their young children, because I remember when I was young, or when I was young, when my kids were really young, it was hard for me to go to any of these creative meetups because I had two little kids. And that really made me feel even more isolated. And I think that people with really young kids deserve to have deserve to be able to go to these things as well. And so I want to make sure that it's um, accommodating to little kids. So bring your crawling babies, bring your breastfeeding baby or breast and chest feeding babies, bring your toddlers. I'll bring some toys for them to play with. Um, I want it to be a place where they can come and feel like they like I can help to hold their hand while they're starting these handcraft activities, and to show them that they can do it. There's so many people that I talk to, um, especially parents, that they will see me knitting and they'll say, how can you do that? And really the only difference is that I took the risk and I did it. There's I don't think that there's certain people that can make things with their hands and people that can't. Um, I think I want to help to bring people together to encourage everyone to take those risks and to connect with their creativity. And so, yeah, I'm still working out the details of it, but I really just want it to be an inclusive place for everyone to feel safe to create and to connect with one another. Um, and especially the asking for help. I think there's so much wisdom that can be passed from generation to generation, from friend to friend. And yeah, I just want it to be a place where there's lots of sharing of their projects, their accomplishments, and also words of encouragement that um, that they can do it, whether it's their project or they can make it through the next day, or um, as a parent. But yeah, I'm really excited.
It's so beautiful, and there's something so powerful about combining, this work with this artistry, with the opportunity to just share and be in our authenticity, to be in our, maybe like we haven't even been able to brush our hair that day, but like we can go and we
Yes.
can talk, we can share stories, we can, hold the structure and the importance of what a postpartum support circle looks like, um,
Hmm.
or a prenatal support circle for that matter, like the blessings
Hmm.
with the layer of this beautiful sattvic act of creation, of artistry, and all the symbolism,
Hmm.
subtle balancing benefits of that. It's so beautiful. And I am very excited to see how this develops in your community. And I really think for those of you out there listening who are just like, yes, yes, yes to this conversation, can you create something like this in your community? Can you
Right.
be a part of helping to bring people together in this unique and special way? It's so much more than a knitting circle, and it's so much more than just a support circle. It is all of those beautiful things combined. And what happens when we do that? How far into our own authentic heart can we go and feel the peace that is natural to being in that space? I love it.
Yeah, and when you look back, throughout history, this has always been what we do. We gather together and we create things with our hands. That's part of our ancestry. That's part of our right as a human being to create with our hands. It's one of the most incredible things that we can do. And so yeah, just bringing back um, that practice. It seems like they say it's like a grandma craft, but it's not. It's every generation deserves to be able to do this and to share it together and to bond over it. So
Mm,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. We've talked a lot about ancestral practices, whether it's cooking, whether it's, but there is something very healing and aligning when we tap into those generational practices. And this
Hmm.
is certainly that,
Yeah.
whether or not, our mothers or grandmothers actively practice that, because as a society, it hasn't been required for most of us to be able to do this, to be clothed.
Right.
However, that doesn't mean that those cellular memories are not still there. And what happens when they get tapped into, and we feel that connection with our lineage, with the people who came before and the people who will come next. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a remembering, I think. Yeah.
So, in like my situation where I just kind of abandoned that part of it through those like most hardcore stages of my parenting. And I do, like I'm going back to that store within 7 days, Jessica. I'm making your
Yes.
I'm gonna go back to that store. But what do you suggest for crafting the time, like carving out the time? How does that,
Yeah.
like, how can that look like for people who are in the throes of life and feel like it might not be possible because of time?
Yeah. I would recommend to if you're just starting out, I would recommend to just get some yarn and find um, you can get a basic, I'll even say the needle sizes in case, because that's was so confusing to me at first. You can get like a 5 millimeter needle, which is I think around a size 8. So anywhere of the middle range needles, you can get a worsted weight yarn and you can just start, you can look on YouTube. They have very extensive resources of how to knit, and you can just start with your stitches, practicing your tension. And or if you just want to go right off the deep end and start with a project, I think that's also a great way to start. There's plenty of free patterns online. Get your yarn, get your needles, and just start. I carry it in my purse. I just carry like a little bag with me everywhere. I always have a tote bag full of my practices. I'll do it on the playground when I'm waiting for my kids to play. I'll do it when I'm waiting for pickup. Um, I'll do it after my kids go to sleep. I think the best way to do it is to try to be consistent. So even if it's just a few stitches every day, once you've gotten started, um, it really adds up. And I definitely don't spend, hours on the weekend knitting. It's that's not how my projects go these days. It's 15 minutes maybe every day or 20 minutes every other day. And yes, just keep it close by, keep it where you can see it, and choose a project that's simple enough that you can just start doing it. And then as you gain more advanced techniques, then that will also feel easier to bring on the go.
Mm, I love that so much. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you.
For those of you listening, we are going to have a couple cool resources in the show notes, but yeah, just take a risk. Get some
Yeah.
yarn that you just love to touch, love to look at. Maybe one that the color just like is so pleasing to your eye. Um,
Yes.
But thank you so much for sharing this super unique and beautiful episode and conversation with me, Jessica. I'm so grateful for you, for the presence in our community, and for the creation that you are birthing in your community. And I hope it inspires others to do the same.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine, and for connecting with me about this. And yeah, anyone listening, I really hope that you get out there and make something.
Thank you all for being a part of this community, and we'll see you next time.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Center for Sacred Window Studies has been training postpartum care providers, professionals who work with new families, and individuals passionate about postpartum care since 2018. We regularly host live free events alongside our online and in-person training and certification programs. Hop on our newsletter list to get direct access to all of our events and community support gatherings. Our mission is not only in training conscious postpartum care providers, but in fostering a robust, informed, and thriving community of postpartum professionals. Once you step inside, you're family forever. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com to add your email to our newsletter list. You can support our work by subscribing to the Sacred Window podcast and sharing with someone you know who would love it. Thanks for being here and participating in the culture-wide shift that recognizes the need for and the importance of conscious postpartum care.